So welcome to everyone. I am Inés García Viñado and I'm part of the PIGWEB Junior Community Board member. And today we have with us Carla Marmelo, that she's going to present herself, but she comes from Portugal and she's a zootechnical engineer and collaborating researcher in 2 universities from Portugal. And she's going to talk to us about factors causing trauma in piglets. So I let her present herself and present her topic. So when you want, Carla, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So my name is Carla Marmelo. I have a bachelor and a master's degree in zootechnical engineering and animal production. My work background is in animal production, especially working most with pigs. I'm also a collaborating researcher on MED, Mediterranean Institute for Agriculture, Environment and Development and Change, Global Change and Sustainability Institute belonging to University of Évora. And I'm also a collaborator researcher on VALORIZA, Research Center for Endogenous Resource Valorization belonging to Politécnico of Portalegre, both in Portugal. My topics of research are especially on animal ethics, animal welfare, and particularly human-animal interaction. And this topic came about as a result of reflecting on what I've been observing while I was working on intensive pig farms. I already have published my research where I say that as human beings, we need to be more gentle with animals on farms. But I noticed when I was working that sometimes more than a better treatment, we must be careful with them in some particular techniques. Keeping in mind that this presentation is based on my experience, even though it is the result of research, I want to warn you that it has a subjective component, so you are free not to agree with me of any of the aspects I mentioned. And at the end, will be interesting to share what do you think about this. And I know there are people here that probably know more than me, so I'm open to that. I'm only going to talk about intensive pig farms. My focus is on piglets, young pigs from birth until they leave for fattening, slaughter, or other holdings, and this includes weaned pigs. The purpose is to re-emphasize the importance of careful and gentle handling of animals at what I call here key moments. In practice, there are times when handling animals is more likely to cause future problems if it's done badly. In particular, it can make handling them in the future more difficult. Animals lose trust in humans or become more afraid, but more than fear, they can be traumatized. So, so sorry. So what does trauma mean? Trauma comes from the Greek trauma, which means injury, wound. According to American Psychological Association, it is an emotional response to a serious event. It depends of the individual perception. In this case, I'm referring to psychological emotional trauma. This means an emotional response caused by a stressful negative event which has an impact on the individual in the short, medium, and long term. Trauma depends on the individual perception. In other words, there may be animals that, even with more brusque and less careful handling on an ongoing basis, do not create negative memories of the process or even of the associated handler. So can the same concept be applied to animals? Although pigs are considered to be sentient beings and the subject of mental health in animals is being increasingly talked about and studied in veterinary medicine, only in animals such as primates and particularly pets is the subject beginning to be studied scientifically. There has been no study on this subject in production animals. The most research done on farmed animals focus on the fear response, factors of stress or anxiety, and there are no research papers that use the concept trauma. That's why my aim is not to go into this subject in depth, but to emphasize the importance of how animals are treated within the framework of their system, avoiding through conscience traumatic experience for them. And when I'm using this term, I mean experiences that potentially cause negative emotional memories, which prevent the individual from behaving naturally, conditioning the handling. So, what are the factors that cause trauma? I divided in two when it comes to human-animal interaction. Direct factors caused directly by humans in their interaction with animals, and indirect factors that are not caused by humans but depends of them for control. And the second doesn't cause trauma but can cause fear or stress. And the case is more serious and more urgent when we are talking about piglets, because they are still naive animals, so they haven't yet adapted to the handling and functioning of the system. From a certain point of view, we can transfer some of this information for gilts, for example, imported to the farm, because even they are old and have been handled, they are still young in that farm and they don't know how the farm works and they don't know the handlers. So within direct interaction, there are some procedures whose impact is greater on the animals, such as, for example, castration. And when I was preparing this presentation, I remembered one excellent example of trauma on pigs when I was doing some internship when I was studying in 2010 in an extensive pig farm. There were about 150 animals probably, and I didn't know that this was illegal. This is illegal, and it was at the time. A female was placed on a table, and her limbs were attached. An incision was made in the flank area, and the ovaries were pulled out. So the man that was doing this gave her a stitch, gave her antibiotics, and I don't remember if he gave something more, sprayed her with, I think it was terramycin, and sent her to the floor. And then she went to meet the other pigs. The males had their testicles incised, and they were also ripped out. No stitches, only spray and antibiotics. So this procedure caused pain and suffering even when done following the law. So the first thing we must be aware, it's how we treat the animal, and this includes how we grab them and hold them. The Portuguese law says that castration of males by means other than tissue removal is permitted. If carried out after the 7th day of life, castration and tail docking must be carried out exclusively by a veterinarian under anesthesia, followed by prolonged analgesia. Before adopting the procedures listed in the previous paragraph, other measures must be taken to prevent even tail biting or other vicious, such as changing poor environmental conditions or inadequate management systems. And being a mutilation, castration should not be done routinely. And the keeper handler of animals must carefully consider the need for this practice. It must be carried out by means other than tissue removal and exclusively applied. So another technique I remember, it was immunocastration. And in Portugal, there was a project called EcoPig, using new high fiber feed for outdoor finishing of intact male local pigs, such as, for example, this Alentejano pigs that was at my example, which consisted of developing a feed to reduce carcass odor in uncastrated males. The result, I'm transcribing what is in the site. The results, among others, show that the levels of androstenone and skatol, the compounds responsible for the male odor and taste in the meat and fat of all animals, were quantified in the fat of the neck, and the levels obtained were considered not to be detectable by the consumer according to the relevant bibliography. What I include here was teeth reduction, and the Portuguese law says that it's permitted the uniform trimming of the piglet's teeth through filling or partial cutting carried out by the seventh day of life at the latest, resulting in an intact and smooth surface. Tail docking and fang teeth trimming must not be carried out routinely, and these procedures must only be adopted if there is objective evidence of lesions on the teeth of sows and on the ears and tails of other pigs. In practice, I think it's better to use an electric teeth grinder than a pliers because it's more faster, and when we are causing pain or discomfort to animal, we want to do it as quickly as possible. So tail docking is it was also stated in the previous points, and I think in the field the mobile thermocautery, it's the better method for don't cause much pain to animals. I'm including here tattooing, like in the previous point, it is very important how animals are restrained. And in this case of the procedure itself, there is already a pneumatic hammer, and it makes restraining the piglet easier and reduces stress. I mean, I'm including here the animal welfare manual because there's also law about this. One of the factors that I think it's one of the most important is weaning. Law says that pig should be grouped together as soon as possible after weaning. Pigs should be raised in stable groups, and mixing should be avoided as much as possible. Pigs must not be separated from their mother before the 28 days old, unless not separating them will be detrimental to the welfare or health of the sow or piglets, although piglets may be separated up to 7 days earlier if they are transferred to specialized facilities that are emptied and meticulously cleaned and disinfected before the introduction of a new group. Separate from facilities where the sows are kept in order to limit the transmission of diseases of the to the piglets. The pigs must be kept in stable groups with a little mixing as possible, and when there is a need for grouping, mixing must take place at the earliest possible age, preferably before weaning or up to a week after weaning. And if mixing takes place, the pigs must have adequate opportunities to escape and hide from the other pigs. Is the only thing that the law says about weaning. And I say that as the animal is being separated from his mother, litter, and birthplace, this is an extremely important moment because it's more sensitive to handling. And people here need to be calmer and gentler in handling with them. I include transports, and when I first put this point here, I was thinking about all the changes of pens and rooms. About transportation, there are legislation and documents published to help farmers, but only with adult animals, and they explain how transport should be carried out and which animals should be transported outside the farm. In addition, there is also a manual explaining how to carry out, for example, emergency slaughter, because the most of the times animal cannot be transported, are sick and can't be cured. There is only one point in the legislation that says that unweaned piglets must have a rest period of 1 hour after 9 hours of traveling to eat and drink. And here we have to understand that animals leaves its comfort zone too. That's what I was thinking when I put this topic here. So it is it is very sensitive too. We really need to be calmer and gentler when we are handling. We human beings need to be gentler with them. And I included two injections or vaccinations not performed by a veterinarian. There is no law about this. And what is said is that the vet can delegate as long as he has thought to do the procedure. And within a farm, the most of the time, the new workers don't learn directly from the vet, except in a few specific cases. If the farm is, for example, maintained by the owner or technician. And injuries can result if the procedure is carried out incorrectly. And I think it is important to remember that it's, again, it's imperative to take into account how the animal is restrained. In terms of indirect factors, I think they are not relevant here for this presentation, but it's good to be mentioned. I will just briefly mention them. So they are a result of the actions of humans who are in certain cases responsible for the environment provided for the animal and their well-being. Here I consider that this comes from indirect interaction. That means it's not caused by act directly with the animal, but through something we do with it or to it. And some of them are, some of them are too high temperatures or abrupt temperature shocks. What the law says is pigs should not be kept in an environment that involves high temperatures and high levels of humidity. And for example, the relative humidity ideally must be more than 60 and less than 80%. I include bad type of flooring or inefficient daily cleaning, because usually here in Portugal we use concrete grid for gilts, fattening pigs and farrowing sows, and for piglets we use plastic because pigs should move at their own pace. They should be gently encouraged, especially around corners and on slippery floors. I'm including excessive density in pens or social stress, for example. There is a law about this, and what the law says too is that if animals that don't know each other have to be mixed, this operation should be carried out at the youngest possible age, preferably before weaning or a week afterwards. When they are mixed, the animals must have the opportunity to run and hide from the others. So all of these factors are all included in legislation about swine production, but it's still important to remember to keep the farm organized and consider the piglets' welfare. So in conclusion, although they are direct and indirect factors, humans play a major role in the treatment of animals. It is very important to be aware of this aspect and pay attention to the way they are handled. And it could be important to develop research focusing on the topic of differences between trauma and stress, anxiety and fear in animals used for food production. So thank you for listening to me. And if you have doubts or want to do a debate, I'm open.
Thank you very much, Carla. So anyone from the public has any questions or opinions that they would like to raise? I don't know. There's someone that put their hand up. Go ahead. I didn't see who was.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Carla. Thank you
Hey.
for your presentation. Am I audible enough?
Yes.
Can I go on? Okay, I was just saying thank you for your presentation. And this is not a question per se. It's only an addition to your presentation when you mentioned the fact that mostly workers on the farm hardly listen to either the veterinarian or the animal nutritionist when it comes to handling the animals. I'm here in Ghana, and ever since I came home, I visited farms, and mostly these workers tend to, exactly as you said, they'd rather listen to their direct superior, say the farmer himself, rather than listening to someone who is there to help the animals and the ongoing of the farm activities. So I think it's very important that we increase extension services to the workers on the farm so that they are able to, know who to listen to, how to go about their work, and all those kinds of things to prevent the animals struggling so much when it comes to handling them. So this is just a top up, nothing special, but what I've also observed from my region. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wants to say something else? Francis, go ahead.
Hi, Carla. Thank you for the presentation. One thing that stuck out to me was that there was a lot of talk about trauma, especially it's your topic that you talk about. But to me, a lot of this is really very similar to what we would call stress in pig production. But I think when you say trauma, you have this additional layer of how do you say that? A physiological thing, psychological. Sorry, a
Yes.
psychological thing, not just physiological responses. But I'm wondering, how would you then measure this in pigs, where you can't really evaluate this
Yeah,
their
this is
psychology, basically?
yeah, this is a very good question. You have done that to me on the email, and I think it's a very wonderful question because when I was writing this, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about the trauma as something to be studied in a research. I was just only thinking, okay, in the field, I'm not. It's not only stress because pigs have a physiological response, have a psychological response, and it's more difficult for me to work with them. It's like I said, it's almost impossible. So I don't know how can I measure trauma just only for one reason, because I don't have enough information to draw a project where I can do this. But I think this is a wonderful idea to be studied in deep by me or other people, because we don't talk about this in the field production, in the animal production. We talk about this in pets, but we can easily know, but we cannot easily know what is trauma on a pig or on a cow or something. So my objective question is now, I don't know. I don't know how can we measure that, but it's a wonderful idea to put aside and to one day start to looking at this in a serious point of view.
You mentioned that they do that for pets.
Yes.
Uh, can you let me know how they do it for pets? How do they specifically measure trauma?
In
Or do you have
pets.
any idea of their methodology behind that?
No, I don't have the idea of the methodology behind it. No, I just found some research about PTSD on pets, and there's a lot of vets writing
Sorry, about what?
about PTSD, post-traumatic stress.
PT. Okay. Sorry. Okay.
No,
In
okay.
pets. Okay.
Yes, on pets. But no, I don't remember the methodology. No.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any more questions? Okay. Well, anyhow, thank you very much, Carla, and it was very interesting. And as we said, we will upload this on YouTube. And thank you very much for sharing with us your presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you for telling me this. Thank you for the opportunity.